Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We are able to hear you, sir.
किसी व्यक्ति के निर्माण का स्वर्णिम समय यौवन काल होता है, जिसमें वह आने वाले लंबे जीवन के लिए का निर्माण और विकास करता है। इसी नींव पर अपने जीवन का मजबूत भवन खड़ा करता है और उसका भोग करता है। किसी भी राष्ट्र के विकास की आधारशिला और ऊर्जा उसकी युवा शक्ति ही होती है। यही उसका आत्मबल और इच्छा शक्ति भी होती है। इसीलिए कहा गया है विकास के उच्च शिखर पर पहुंचता है। राष्ट्र के कृषि, उद्योग, शिक्षा, चिकित्सा, तकनीक, राजनीति रूपी चक्के को यही युवा शक्ति, ऊर्जा व गति प्रदान करती है। यह राष्ट्र की रगों में बहने वाला गर्म खून है, जो उसे चैतन्य और प्रगतिशील बनाता है। भौतिक विकास में का तप है। इतिहास साक्षी रहा है कि जब किसी राष्ट्र की धुरी लड़खड़ाई है, युवा शक्ति ने आगे आकर अपने पुरुषार्थ से उसे सुदृढ़ बनाया है। आज अनेक प्रकार की समस्याएं जैसे नशा, फैशन परस्ती, पाश्चात्य जीवन शैली, आस्था संकट, भ्रष्टाचार, बेरोजगारी देश की युवा शक्ति पर आरूढ़ हैं। आज युवा शक्ति को आत्मबोध एवं अपने सांस्कृतिक गौरव से परिचित कराना समय की मांग है। वर्ष 2011 की जनगणना के अनुसार हमारे देश में 35 वर्ष तक की उम्र की 65% आबादी है। यह युवा शक्ति जिधर चल पड़ेगी, देश भी उधर ही चल पड़ेगा। अतः देश का भविष्य अब युवाओं के हाथ में है। यह युवा शक्ति ही शक्ति बनकर राष्ट्र को समृद्धि, उन्नति एवं प्रगति के मार्ग पर ले जाएगी। युग ऋषि पंडित श्री राम शर्मा आचार्य जी ने युवा की अद्भुत परिभाषा दी है। युवा वो है असंभव जिसके शब्दकोश में नहीं, जो बाधाओं को चीर कर अपना मार्ग बनाता है, जो परिस्थितियों का दास नहीं, उनका निर्माता, नियंत्रणकर्ता एवं स्वामी है, जो भाग्य नहीं, अपने कर्म पर विश्वास रखता है, जो उमंग, उत्साह, जोश से जीता वो सुनहरे भविष्य के सपने देखता है, जो स्वयं सब कुछ करके गौरव अनुभव करता है और विश्व में कुछ अनूठा करना चाहता है।
असमंजस व अवसाद की स्थिति से गुजर रही युवा पीढ़ी को वर्ष 2006 में देव संस्कृति विश्वविद्यालय के दीक्षांत समारोह में पूर्व राष्ट्रपति डॉक्टर एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम व श्रद्धेय डॉक्टर प्रणव पंड्या जी, जो विश्वविद्यालय के कुलपति भी हैं, मिले और इन दोनों चिंतकों ने मंथन किया कि युवा पीढ़ी को एक सृजनात्मक मंच देने की आवश्यकता है जो राष्ट्र निर्माण में सहायक हो। यहीं से दिया की नींव रखी गई।
I am indeed delighted to participate in the second convocation of Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya. I am very happy that this institution has been created with a motto of developing the divine culture, which is of utmost importance to us while we are on the path of transforming India into a prosperous, happy and peaceful society. We have the responsibility of transforming India into a developed nation before the year 2020. It is an endless journey through knowledge and enlightenment. Such a journey opens up new vistas of development or humanism, where there is no scope nor room for pettiness, disharmony, jealousy and hatred or enmity. It transforms a human being into a wholesome whole, a noble soul and an asset to the universe. God bless you.
जिस तरह एक दिया अंधकार को दूर करने की क्षमता रखता है, दिया भी इस देश के युवा मन से अंधेरे को दूर करने का स्वप्न लेकर चला है। ये प्रशिक्षण और कार्यशालाओं के माध्यम से शिक्षित, स्वस्थ, आत्मनिर्भर, विनम्र, संवेदनशील दिव्य युवाओं को तैयार करने के लिए प्रयासरत है, जिससे राष्ट्र निर्माण की रचनात्मक गतिविधियां चलाई जा सकें, दिव्य भारत का पुनर्निर्माण हो। इसका लक्ष्य युवाओं की क्षमताओं का विकास कर दिव्य भारत का निर्माण करना है, जिसमें व्यक्ति, परिवार व समाज का उत्थान हो। दिया युवाओं के सपनों में आदर्शवाद लाकर उनकी वैचारिक प्रक्रिया में सकारात्मक बदलाव लाने के लिए प्रयासरत है। वैज्ञानिक अध्यात्म के माध्यम से युवाओं में देवत्व की अभिव्यक्ति, दुनिया में सद्भाव के साथ सतयुग की वापसी इसका परम उद्देश्य है। इस तथ्य की महत्वता समझते हुए वो डॉक्टर कलाम के भारतवर्ष को वर्ष 2020 तक एक समृद्ध राष्ट्र बनाने के स्वप्न की ओर युवा शक्ति को अग्रसर करने के लिए दिया इस महान राष्ट्र के युवाओं के लिए एक आंदोलन है जो मजबूत सिद्धांतों और यथार्थवादी लक्ष्यों पर आधारित है। जो लोग दिल और दिमाग से युवा हैं एवं जो एक नए भारत की परिकल्पना के हमारे स्वप्न से सहमत हैं, उम्र, जाति या धर्म की परवाह किए बगैर हमसे जुड़े।
मुझे विश्वास है गायत्री परिवार के दिया आंदोलन के माध्यम से देश के युवाओं में वो संवेदनाएं प्रकट होगी, सामाजिक जिम्मेवारियां प्रकट होगी, एक साहस की वृत्ति पैदा होगी, कुछ करने के लिए, कुछ कर करके दिखाने के लिए जीवन को लगाने की इच्छा होगी। देश के लिए जीना सीखो इस मंत्र के साथ।
इस आंदोलन से जुड़कर आपके जीवन में खुशी एवं एक नए उत्साह का संचार होगा। साथ ही अपने राष्ट्र को नई ऊंचाइयों तक ले जाने में आप गौरवान्वित महसूस करेंगे।
सभी का आज की ज्ञान सभा में स्वागत है। ज्ञान सभा is a platform to bring in leading thinkers and leaders of the world to interact with a wide audience. Gyan Sabha gives everyone an opportunity to listen to men and women who are shaping the world with new thoughts, ideas, and concepts. Gyan Sabha is an initiative of Divine India Youth Association, Mumbai. Gyan Sabha is held every Sunday evening through webinar that is cast both through WebEx as well as YouTube. आज की ज्ञान सभा बहुत विशेष है। आज हमारे बीच एक अति विशिष्ट, अति सम्माननीय वैज्ञानिक एवं महान व्यक्तित्व उपस्थित हैं। मैं उनका स्वागत करूं उससे पहले आज की सभा हम गायत्री मंत्र से आरंभ करेंगे। यह मंत्र हमें अंधकार से प्रकाश की ओर ले जाता है, हमारी बुद्धि को सन्मार्ग की ओर बढ़ने के लिए प्रेरित करता है, हमें ऊर्जा और शक्ति से भर देता है। आप सभी से अनुरोध है अपना माइक म्यूट कर लें और मेरे साथ मन ही मन यह मंत्र दोहराएं। अपनी कमर सीधी कर लें, आंखें बंद कर लें और गायत्री मंत्र हमारे साथ बोलें। ओम भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। Friends, this evening we are privileged to have a great luminary with us, Padmshree, Padmavibhushan and Padmavibhushan, Dr. Raghunath Mashlekar ji. Sir, I welcome you to this enchanting edition of Gyan Sabha that is being attended by a large audience through WebEx and YouTube. Dr. Raghunath Mashlekar will be speaking on a very interesting topic today, access to education and its challenges. I am now honored to introduce the speaker to our audience. Dr. R.A. Mashlekar, National Research Professor, has been the Director General Foundation and also the President of Indian National Science Academy, Global Research Alliance and Institute of Chemical Engineers, UK. In recognition of his pioneering research contributions in polymer science and engineering, he has been honored as a Fellow of Royal Society, Foreign Fellow of US National Academy of Science and also Engineering, Foreign Associate of American Academy of Arts and Science, and Fellow of US National Academy of Inventors. 42 universities from around the world have honored him with honorary doctorates. He has won a large number of awards, 60 of these, and some of them are the prestigious TWAS Lenovo Science of Prize, Business Week USA Award of Stars of Asia, JRD Tata Corporate Leadership Award. Dr. Mashlekar, who has been a member of the Scientific Advisory Council to the Prime Minister for over 30 years, has been honored with Padmshree, Padmabhushan, and Padmavibhushan, three of the highest civilian honors. Now, this is his very official brief resume. I have to speak a little bit more about him. He's not just one of the greatest scientists of India, at the same time, he is a very great human being. डॉक्टर माशेलकर का आरंभिक जीवन अनेक कठिनाइयों और चुनौतियों से भरा हुआ रहा। पिताजी का साथ 6 वर्ष की आयु में ही छूट गया था, पर इनकी माताजी ने इनकी पढ़ाई के लिए अपना पूरा जीवन समर्पित कर दिया। छोटे से म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन के स्कूल से लेकर 42 यूनिवर्सिटीज से ऑनररी डॉक्टरेट मिलने की यात्रा बहुत ही रोमांचित करने वाली है। इनका जीवन एक जीता जागता उदाहरण है कि यदि हमारे मन में लगन है तो किस तरह हम हर तरह की कठिनाइयों से लड़ सकते हैं। धीरे धीरे कदम बढ़ाते हुए हम आकाशी ऊंचाइयों को छू सकते हैं। Throughout his career, he has written 25 books and 284 research papers. He has also actively served the government of India by chairing 12 highly empowered Mashlekar committees. It was through his sustained and visionary campaign that awareness of intellectual property rights has grown amongst Indian academics, researchers, and corporates. He spearheaded the successful challenge to a US patent on the use of turmeric for wound healing, as well as another patent on basmati rice. आप लोग सब जानते ही होंगे कि हल्दी हमारे ट्रेडिशनल मेडिसिन के रूप में हमेशा से इस्तेमाल की जाती रही है, और ये एक समय था जब यूएस में हल्दी के ऊपर पेटेंट लॉन्च किया गया था, जिसके अगेंस्ट हमारा जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन था वो माशेलकर सर ने एक्चुअली रिप्रेजेंट किया था, और चैलेंज को उन्होंने सक्सेसफुली कंप्लीट किया। So these landmark cases have set up new paradigms in the protection of India's traditional knowledge base. At an international level, this has led to the initiation of the change of the international patent classification system to give traditional knowledge its rightful place. Despite reaching such great heights, Sir is an extremely sensitive human being. He has worked very hard to ensure that science and innovations reach grassroots levels और भारत के हर एक आम व्यक्ति तक विज्ञान की दी हुई सभी साबित हो सके, हर एक गरीब से गरीब व्यक्ति उनका लाभ उठा सके। Sir, it is an honor again that you have given us your valuable time for this Gyan Sabha session, and I now hand over the reins to you to please share your valuable thoughts on how to overcome all the challenges to take education to each and every citizen of India. Sir.
Thank you. Introduction. I feel that I'm so privileged to be with you this evening, this Sunday evening. I'm very impressed with the great work that DIYA has been doing. Just as the name suggests, as they say, ज्ञान प्रकाश लाता है और अब सब जगह प्रकाश फैला रहे हैं. I was very touched to see Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam speaking. He has been a very close friend, a guru, a guide, a friend, a philosopher, or my memories of him just came rushing down as one of the finest human beings I have met in my life, besides being a great president of India or Religious and Power. But still, he moved on to become president, and I moved on to become a good scientist because of what is called as a Tata scholarship. Both of us were Tata scholars. In fact, in SSC, I moved on to become a good scientist because of what is called as a Tata scholarship. Both of us were Tata scholars. In fact, in SSC, I had stood 11th among 135,000 students in Maharashtra state at that time. And despite that, I was going to leave education because I could see my mother struggle. So Tata scholarship of 60 rupees came my way. And I used to go to Bombay House, please. The same Bombay House where I later on went to become a director there on Tata's. So that was the similarity between the two. So can you just imagine that K.R. Narayanan, who got Tata scholarship and became the president because he got access to education, because I got Tata scholarship, I went there to get my Padmavibhushan. And K.R. Narayanan, who had got Tata scholarship to become the president, gave Padmabhushan to Ratan Tata. Can you just imagine that? Doesn't that prove the equation equal to F? Because we build our future because we had an education, of course, after that, an opportunity. So education is extraordinarily sort of important, and access to education, therefore, like I would not be speaking to you today, and Hitesh ji and Amitabh ji would not have invited me if I had not studied and sort of moved on in my life. Now, the new education policy has come, which is an outstanding policy, but I would simplify the whole thing by saying that there are three things we need to worry about. The first is right to education. The second is right education. And third is right way of education. Now, right to education, शिक्षण तो हमारा अधिकार है, वो तो मिल गया है. That's not an issue at all, actually. वो तो मिल गया है. That's not an issue at all, actually. But what is important is right education. And what does right education mean? उसमें ज्ञान संवर्धन होता है, बुद्धि संवर्धन होता है, वृत्ति संवर्धन होता है, व्यक्तिमत्व संवर्धन होता है, क्षमता संवर्धन होता है, और महत्वपूर्ण है जो मूल्य संवर्धन होता है, जिसके बारे में आपने अभी बात की, जो आपकी फिल्म थी, उसने अपने उसको दिखाया. तो ये हम कैसा दें, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात है. दूसरी बात है कि what kind of education would be right education? So we said education should be one which should be able to give you jobs, let us say, one of the objectives. But there is a challenge. The Secretary of US Department of Labor, a couple of years ago, I was in US, and she said that the children who are going to school today, those who are in senior classes, will end up in jobs which don't exist today. Technology is so fast, and new jobs are getting created, and therefore they will not exist today. And we are seeing, like the banking, you know how many jobs have disappeared. Actually, my mobile to your mobile, all intermediate jobs are gone, basically. So what are those jobs we don't know? And what are we going to teach to make us job ready? And therefore, the first point I want to make is that in terms of right education, whether you go into science or engineering or law or political science, it just doesn't matter. There are some fundamental qualities, competencies that you need to acquire. And what are those five? The third is creativity and innovation. The fourth is emotional intelligence. ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है. You know, आपका दिल ठीक जगह होना चाहिए. सिंपैथी नहीं, एम्पैथी की जरूरत है. और वो एम्पैथी नहीं होगी. मैंने अपने भाषण में कहा कि इंजीनियर विदाउट एम्पैथी इज नो इंजीनियर. कंपैशन होना चाहिए. सिंपैथी, एम्पैथी और कंपैशन इन द हार्ट फॉर फेलो बीइंग, ये होना चाहिए. And finally, it is co-creation. आप खुद नहीं create करेंगे, you will come together and co-create. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि the way we are doing things in education, that has to change. Because learning by rote, ये चल रहा था, ये नहीं चलेगा. वो होगा learning by doing. But doing what? What the teacher tells you? Step 1, step 2, step 7? नहीं. Learning by creating. और केवल लर्निंग बाय क्रिएटिंग नहीं, बल्कि लर्निंग बाय को क्रिएटिंग. और वो को क्रिएशन किससे करना होगा? नॉट मैन एंड मैन, मैन एंड मशीन. इट इज नॉट मैन वर्सेस मशीन. मशीन आपका दोस्त होना चाहिए. ऑलराइट, हम रोबो की बात नहीं करेंगे, कोबा की बात करेंगे. कोबा यानी कि कोऑपरेटिव रोबोट, उसके साथ कैसे हम काम करें. ये सबसे बहुत बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। तो ये बदल होने चाहिए। अभी आप एजुकेशन में देखिए, कोई ऐसे पर्व आए हैं। द फर्स्ट वन, एजुकेशन 1.0। एजुकेशन 1.0 was गुरुकुल। हाँ, गुरु वहां बैठे और शिष्य एक ही सामने बैठा, गुरु के पास सब ज्ञान था, वो शिष्य को गया, है ना। बट एजुकेशन was not available to everybody, by the way. It was available to select few. That was education 1.0. Then came education 2.0, जैसे कि आपने सीखा, हमने सीखा, one teacher, 30 students, 40 students, 50 students, 60 students, ये जो है ना, वो तो असेंबली लाइन जैसे हम कहते हैं वैसे हुआ। लेकिन इसके बाद में जो आ रहा है वो एजुकेशन 3.0, वो जो है डिजिटल है, वो जो है वो ऑनलाइन लर्निंग है, जैसे कि हम आज कर रहे हैं, और वो धीरे 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 आ रहा था, है ना। तो ये जो डिजिटल डिस्रप्शन है, ये तो आ रहा था और धीरे धीरे आ रहा था, लेकिन अभी क्या हुआ है, कोविड के कारण वो सडनली आ गया। इसका मतलब है, आपने देखा होगा ड्यूरिंग कोविड, विद इन 100 days 1.6 billion children went out of the school. Work has become, or home has become workplace, home has become basically school. So many things happened. 100 million families, they were poor, in poverty, they went into extreme poverty. तो ऐसे बहुत चेंज हो गया। तो ये जो पोस्ट कोविड जो पीरियड है, कोविड और पोस्ट कोविड पीरियड, उसमें हम एजुकेशन का क्या करें, इसी के ऊपर मैं बात करने वाला। तो डिजिटल लर्निंग जो है, उसमें क्या, डिजिटल डिस्पर्मेशन में क्या होता है कि एक इंफॉर्मेशन मेमोराइजेशन और उसका फिर रिकॉल, ये नहीं होना। ब्रेन का हम स्टोरेज जैसा है ना, पढ़ते थे एंड वी यूज्ड टू स्टोर इन द ब्रेन, पढ़ते थे और स्टोर इन द ब्रेन। तो ब्रेन का उपयोग हम स्टोरेज जैसा करते थे, वो नहीं होगा, वो इंटेलिजेंट प्रोसेसर होगा, प्रोसेस करेगा। ह्यूमैनिटीज नॉलेज, आज आपने देखा होगा, ये पूरी पूना की जो लाइब्रेरी है ना, ये मेरे स्मार्टफोन में है। इसके लिए मुझे लाइब्रेरी में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। तो ये बदल हो गया है। Then rich formatted content, flipped classrooms. Then you have access to any word as far as lectures are concerned. I can hear the lectures from MIT, from Princeton, from Harvard, from Cambridge, from Caltech, the best in the world. Okay, just as you are listening to me today, basically that has become sort of possible. Then on-demand tutoring, P2P learning. So there are huge number of changes. So therefore, the new universities that will have to come, they have to change their basic character. I remember I gave the 100th convocation address of Banaras Hindu University. And you know what was the title? Title was, Dikshant ka matlab Shikshant nahi hota. That means it's over. I'm sorry. The word is changing so fast that you have to continue to learn when you are in 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. Otherwise, you can get sort of outdated. So the new universities have to be built around that. And also remember, education has fundamentals: learning, doing, and being. Learning, doing, and being. Learning तो हम जैसे कर रहे हैं, आप मुझे देख रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं, सीख रहे हैं, मैं भी आपको सुनूंगा, सीखूंगा, but there is a part of doing with our sort of own hand. There's no substitute to that. But most important part is being a human being, being a part of the sort of society. All right. So this is the multifaceted learning that we have to have in time to come. Now, as I said, a Mashlekar got 60 rupees scholarship and he could get access to education. आजकल वो बात नहीं होगी। अगर आप सिर्फ स्कॉलरशिप देंगे ना तो उसका फायदा नहीं होगा। क्यों नहीं होगा? Because as you can see, as per World Bank report, out of these 1.6 billion children, 1/3 of them don't have access to a smartphone or an iPad or any device. You require device, no? And you require connectivity. Okay? अगर आपके पास वो कनेक्टिविटी नहीं है और कोई ऐसी डिवाइस नहीं है तो आप सीखेंगे कैसे? तो आपने भारत में देखा होगा कि यू मस्ट हैव सीन द माइग्रेंट लेबर वॉकिंग एंड इतनी परेशानी हुई है लाखों लोगों को और बहुत से गरीब और गरीब बन गए हैं. सो स्कूल्स आर क्लोज्ड. तो क्या करें क्या? अगर आप गरीब हो, स्कूल बंद है, हाँ, आपके बच्चे हैं, उनको आपको पढ़ाना है, तो आप करेंगे क्या? तो ये कुलदीप कुमार की बात है, हिमाचल प्रदेश के. वो गरीब थे, उनको 6,000 रुपये चाहिए थे, लेकिन उनको 6,000 रुपये किसी ने दिए नहीं. तो बेचारे का एक ही साधन था जीवन का, वो था उसकी गाय. एंड ही सोल्ड हिज काउ for 6,000 rupees to buy a smartphone like this for his children so that they could study. And of course, that news was the thing, and then people came rushing because Indians have a big heart and they sort of. But like that one Kuldeep Kumar, how many Kuldeep Kumars are there about whom we do not? So the main point I'm trying to make in my lecture on access to education, ye access hum kaise de? And for that, it is extremely important that India's all these technological advances that we are talking about, we must ensure that we have device with everyone. And how do we make sure about that? I think that is where one will like to spend some little time. For example, imagine, let us say a tablet, or I have my iPad with me. All right, it is extremely expensive, but supposing it is just available for $10, what difference it will have? Or if you had, let us say, a computer or a personal computer, which was available for low cost, what difference it will be? Now, India has had that talent to develop it. So let me take you through a story. That's what I say always, talent, technology, and trust. You will see, for example, that in year 2000, there was what was called a computer. Okay? This computer was developed, and it was a low-cost alternative to personal computer, a shared device that can permit truly simple and natural user interface based on touch, sight, and audio. And it could read and speak 7 Indian languages, just made for India. Okay? And the important part was that in terms of technology, it was ahead of the curve. So, iPhone later on introduced what was called as accelerometer, but they had already done it before iPhone, by the way. They are ahead of Apple. Then, for example, Samsung Galaxy, they introduced this bongle on mail, you know, the ability to write on a sort of phone, which was a major breakthrough. And they had it. So can you just imagine the startups who came from Indian Institute of Science had computer, a simple computer made just for everyone in India at very, very low cost indeed. तो उसका आगे क्या हो गया? कुछ नहीं. Because when such a breakthrough comes, the government has to come in, there has to be a public procurement policy where what happens is that once you have a breakthrough like that, government puts an order for, let's say, 10,000, okay? Then it goes into the market, it is test market feedback, then you make, all right, and then you create a great product, and then it is finally sort of sold. So if that computer in 2001 was supported, where we have been? I want to read something to you. There is this Bruce Sterling from New York Times had said, and I'm reading from what he wrote. He said the most significant innovation in computer technology was not Apple's gleaming PowerBook 4G, nor Microsoft Windows XP. It was Simputer, a net-linked, radically simple portable computer intended to bring computer revolution to the third world. But हुआ नहीं. यानी कि अपने पास टैलेंट था, टेक्नोलॉजी थी, लेकिन उसमें ट्रस्ट नहीं है, उसको आगे ले जाने, है ना? तो ये हमें बदलना है. And that is why, in terms of new public procurement policy, Amitabh Kant of Niti Aayog, when he brought out a book about 17 things that can change India, I have a chapter there on how such a bold public procurement policy can help such indigenous. That was not what the end of the story. I became the Director General of CSIR, and I remember I created what is called the New Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative, NIMITLI. And in that, I gave challenges which were relevant to India. And one of them was, the laptop is $2,000, can you do it in $200? And believe me, Vinay Deshpande, from Bangalore, actually created it. But having done that, once again, it did not get the kind of support that was needed, because if in year 2000, that program was set up. In 2005, I remember the Minister of Education launched it. 15 बरस हो गए. अगर उस वक्त वो $200 होता तो आज उसकी कीमत $25 या $50 पे आ जाती थी, जो for a common man it would happen. So our people are capable of doing that. And then came Akash. Akash was a $30 tablet, basically. Once again, we could not take it forward. Why I'm mentioning this is that we'll have to pay in order that access to education becomes possible. Because if you don't have digital access, you don't have. So why back? Because what you find is that the landlines will come up to the cities, but they will not go into villages, basically. And I'm very happy that the Prime Minister has said that there is an intention of taking fiber optic line to every village in 1,000 days. I think that is wonderful. But till it comes, what do you do? So there was an alternative technology called Buyback, okay, where you give the last minute mile sort of connectivity to a village, the most distant village. So near Pune, around 30-35 kilometers, there is a village. And I remember I was presiding over the Global Research Alliance with the presidents of all these great organizations in Kuala Lumpur. And we had a dialogue from those villages, from the school there. And those children spoke in Marathi and I translated in English to the presidents, basically. But unfortunately, that technology was not sort of taken forward. मैं इसकी क्यों बात कर रहा हूँ? ये आज की ये आवश्यकता है, इसको आगे ले जाना है. ये एक बड़ा मिशन हमें बनाना होगा कि अगर डिजिटल एक्सेस नहीं होगा तो हम आगे नहीं जा सकेंगे. ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात है. Now that issue is so powerful, I'll tell you what happened about a month ago. The UN Secretary General had called a meeting of the presidents of universities from 96 countries. And there were more than 200 presidents who participated. 12 of them were invited to participate in a panel discussion on higher education post-COVID. क्या होगा? Because pre-COVID and post-COVID तो दुनिया बदलने वाली है, बदली है. So in that, I participated as president of Geo Institute. And we had president of Harvard University, president of Tsinghua University from China, president of Tokyo University from Japan, etc. And I made this particular point. I said, in the new world, you talk about online learning. Universities are not starting, colleges are not starting. And but 1/3 do not have the access. So what are you going to do? And I remember Jeffrey Sachs at that time said, that just have sustainable development goals, 17 of them, we have to create a new sustainable development goal, 18th one, which is digital access is a basic human right, as a basic human right. So ये हमें आगे sort of ले जाना है. I would say that we did number of things during COVID. Annadan kiya, dhanadaन kiya, we gave sort of money, that, etc. But I think the new mantra is going to be digital donation, क्योंकि ये आवश्यकता बन गई है. And I have seen many things are happening. I was talking to an education officer in Nashik, and they said they launched a campaign on digital donation because देखिए, every 6 months you sort of change, sort of let's say your mobile, and then why don't we sort of donate it? And I'll tell you, the heart is in the right place. I was doing an opening of this Garje Marathi in California just a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned about this Kuldeep Kumar story, and I said, you guys have all this, why don't you sort of donate it? And within a day, they came back to me saying that we want to donate something worth 5 crore in terms of equipment, instruments, tablets, and so on and so forth, etc. So we are working out with the Maharashtra government how that will be basically taken forward. So the first point I'm making is access to education in future will mean access, digital access. And then we'll have to deal with number of sort of other challenges. I would list 10 of them for you in terms of going forward. The first thing is that until the vaccine becomes available, because we still don't know, by the way, you cannot predict that by 31st December things will be over, January things will be over, etc., etc. Until the vaccine comes up, we are going to have a challenge. And vaccine will take some time, so we have to have contingency plans. That's number one. Number two, we have to balance out public health and access to education, all right? So therefore, social distancing becomes important because safety first, children's health first. So how do we do that? And there we require innovative planning, new designs of schools that will be necessary. The third point will be reimagining the education delivery system using technology for inclusive participation. And in the digital world, we have a lot of scope, and I will explain that to you. The fourth one is the role of parents and teachers. You know, previously, there used to be once a year some parent-teacher association meeting. No, that meeting has to take place practically every day now. Because if children are studying from school, the parents have a great responsibility by them. So how do you sort of stay connected? What is your responsibility and how do you share it? That's the fourth. Then there is a new ecosystem, you know, schools, colleges, they didn't want companies or television stations or radio stations and so on and so forth, etc. But they're all going to get integrated. So there's a new ecosystem that you have to do. The sixth one is teachers, most important. All right? Google can't be your guru, integrated. So there's a new ecosystem that you have to do. The sixth one is teachers, most important. All right? Google can't be your guru. There's no substitute to guru, basically. And therefore, making teachers technology savvy is going to be important. So there is a whole lot of training that is required. You know, yesterday was the teacher, something like 350, 360 teachers. And then during the question answer, one teacher said, sir, we are old now. How do I learn all these digital technologies, etc.? I said, there is no such product. Then process of designing the curriculum, then new pedagogies that will communicate the ideas behind the curriculum, etc., etc. The next one, the seventh point, is building capacity in blended learning. You know, very frankly, there is no substitute to physical learning. That's a learning, doing, and being. The being part of it, you can't really do. And then if you go back to what I said little earlier, what are the fundamentals? Jnana Savardhan, yes, all right, you can do it digitally. Buddhi Savardhan, partially. Vyaktimatva Savardhan, how do you do? Digitally. Kshamata Samvardhan, how do you do digitally? Vritti Samvardhan, Kshamata Samvardhan, how do you do it digitally? Mulya Samvardhan, how can you do it digitally? And therefore, there has to be, how do you create that blend? It does not mean we go back to the old days. And in that we invent, how do you make use of the student? So there has to be a completely new thinking. The 8th point is about assessing student needs, by the way, okay, and recovering the learning losses that they have suffered. You can't let a child lose an year, for example. You know, when you lose 1 year, somebody has done a calculation. What you have to see is that he calculated something like 8% in income, basically. हम लोग कहते हैं वो क्या फर्क पड़ता है इतनी लंबी उम्र है, वैसे नहीं है. So that part we have to see. Then we have to create those, therefore, these expanded, what are their new emotional needs? Because one of the experiments, those days there used to be video cassettes. Young people will not even, and like say low Reynolds number hydrodynamics, okay, of Sir G.I. Taylor, and I would show that film, 5th question on that film. Now, why I did that? Education is observation, analysis, and synthesis. How do you observe something? How do you analyze it? And how do you create something new out of it? All right, that's what I was basically testing. Now, I still remember I got complete freedom to do that, by the way, which is something I wonder whether I would have gotten there, where the students evaluate the teacher. And I remember there are 25 questions, by the way, and some of them are very subtle. Does the teacher have the ability to see that you are lost? Because you look at the class, oh, David, I'm very happy to say that university was ranked as number 3 in US at that time, not the university, the chemical department. And among 18 great stalwarts there of who's who, I was ranked as number 1, you know. And there is a provision for saying, you know, you can write anything that you want. What they, you know, our people are very respectful to the teacher. But one of them had that Professor Mashlekar has showed me the way to life, and I don't know how to thank him. Maybe I will name my firstborn child after that experiment. What happened was, what I was doing in a class, the intelligence quotient of every student is not the same. So what I was doing was that I was giving the same time for everybody. Okay? So the cleverest student in the class, as well as not so clever student, I gave the same class and tested them on the same thing. Okay? Now digital learning gives you an equal opportunity. I teach in, I am Sir Louis Matheson District Professor in Monash University. And there, for example, being a rich country, if there are 30 students, there are 30 tablets. Teacher has access to what is happening in every tablet. It's like how your mind is working at every stage. Because here you get to know what happens to you only after the periodic test after 3 months is taken. There, how sort of practically. And in some cases, when you are doing online learning, for example, there I did not give them a chance. That 15-minute film was shown. But here, because that was a video cassette. But here in online learning, what do you do? कुछ समझ में नहीं आया तो आप rewind करते हैं, फिर देखते हैं. So they monitor actually how many times you rewind, so that you will sort of understand. So the point I'm trying to make is that in this digital, there is be kind of a paradigm shift. So I like to end while summarizing that there has to be a paradigm shift, you know, as far as students are concerned. From passive, who are just listening, blackboard पे आते हैं, लिखते हैं, सुनते हैं, नहीं, they will be active participants. From completing, homework दिया है complete करना, नहीं, creating. From consuming to producing, they were considered as consumers of knowledge, they will be producers of it. Memorizing नहीं, processing जैसे कि मैंने कहा, और केवल answering नहीं, asking, ये बहुत बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात है. And I'll just give you an example. The Khan Academy, for example, you know, I was looking at that industrial stoichiometry module that they have. And I remember whatever Professor Chitre taught me in university, I could grasp it in 15 minutes. And the following day when I go, if Professor Chitre was telling me the same thing that I had studied, then what happens? So what is going to happen is that the children are going to be more informed than the teacher, by the way, because they would have studied everything, out of the class, etc., etc. So the role of teacher changes. So how the teacher has to change? From teacher-centered, it has to become student-driven. From telling to listening. From mass production to mass customization, जैसे कि मैंने कहा अभी, सबके भेजे में क्या चल रहा है और कैसे कर रहे हैं वो आपको पता चलेगा. From presenter, you have to become a facilitator, and from a content expert to a processor. So what I have done during the 45 minutes that have been given to me is just to give you a glimpse of the way the entire educational system is changing. And as I said, education is future. I would not be here if I did not have that scholarship and access to education. But as I said, it is not just right to education, and right way of education. And that is going to be our challenge. President Obama has said, education and innovation are the currencies of the future. I would say education in innovation and innovation in education are going to be the currencies of the future. Finally, I know that this pandemic has depressed people. There is a lot of anxiety, concern, etc. But I want to end my talk. People call me dangerous optimist, Durdamya Ashawadi. So I have to live up to that reputation because I'm a great believer that even from this adversity, we'll reinvent ourselves. We'll not recover, but we'll reinvent ourselves and we'll come back stronger. And that power of human imagination, I always say there's no limit to human achievement, no limit to human endurance, no limit to human imagination, excepting the limit you put on yourself. So I will go back to pandemic, the current one, like the one that we're facing, and just read out to you something from a book called The Rarest Blue of Baruch and Judy Sturman. And I quote, "We owe our modern understanding of light and color to the multifaceted genius of the 17th century Englishman Isaac Newton. England saw its last major outbreak of bubonic plague in 1665-1666. As a precautionary measure, the students at Cambridge University, including young Newton, were sent home till the following year. जैसे कि हम भी घर में बैठे हैं अभी. He spent his enforced vacation working on ideas underlying his spectacular accomplishment. You know what? Number one, gravitation. Pandemic पे किया है ये काम. Gravitation. Number two, laws of motion. Number three, calculus. And number four, optics. Something that laid the foundations of fundamental science during pandemic. So Alexander Pope captured this achievement brilliantly in a famous couplet intended for an epitaph. Nature and nature's laws lay hid, all was light. That is the power of human sort of nature, and that we have seen in abundance in India, because India is great in combining scarcity with opportunity through adversity. So I want to wish all of you a great future. Pandemics come and go, but human spirit lives on, and it is that power which will make us conquer. Thank you very much. God bless you.
So what an excellent session. It's really enlightening to hear you every time that you speak. You presented some fabulous thoughts on, you started beautifully with that education equal to future. It's an equation that now I'll remember forever. You talked about right education and the right way to education, which makes a lot of sense. We talked about learning by creation and by co-creation with machines. This is something which is definitely hotting up now. And with artificial intelligence coming in, we should be able to create much better machines, which will improve education significantly now. Very relevant points on how to take education to Indian masses in this digital era and the need for indigenous devices. I personally remember this computer and really sad that it never achieved the level of acceptability as it should have. Challenges you pointed out are highly relevant today. You, of course, are doing great work in finding solutions to these problems through innovation. And I would like to assure you that DIA is actually committed to help you in this mission. The way to education has changed significantly, and rightly you mentioned that a new thinking is required in this new era with the changes that are coming up. Continuing on your great vision of taking education to every citizen of our country, I would like to mention here, mention a few words about a very unique university that is founded by All World Gayatri Parivar at Haridwar. This university is called as Dev Sanskati University. A glimpse of that you saw in that video which was shown. It is actually created for cultural and spiritual renaissance of the whole world. So it has a confluence of both traditional education along with science and spirituality. It is intended to create devoted, righteous, and learned students who are well endowed with nationalistic ideas. It's working towards guiding future leaders by developing human values and oneness towards all. And there is also great emphasis on conduct of conventional research in non-conventional disciplines. Actually created, on very similar ideas that you presented, that there is a need to, instill values in people so that, people think about our country as one and work towards its, develop it as a whole together. Now, I've been flooded with questions from lots of people. So let me take a few of them. I know your time is also precious, but there are a few questions which are nice, and we would like to hear from you on those. First question is, what is your message for parents and teachers to build scientific and innovative mindset in children, and also so basically to enhance their creativity, and at the same time give them this culture of entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
So what are your views on that, sir?
I think this is an excellent question, basically. I can give another 45-minute lecture on just this question, by the way. It is so important. Yeah. That is why, I always said, in fact, yesterday I said, you can't take a 25-year-old young man and tell him, hey, from tomorrow you'll be innovative. It can't be. It has to be built from childhood. शुरुआत से ही होना चाहिए. So I think the first the thing that comes up is, I remember I was a member of Prime Minister's National Innovation Council, and there we had created this idea of तोड़-फोड़ जोड़ centers. कभी बच्चों को हम, अरे इसको हाथ नहीं लगाना, ये टूट जाएगा, इसको ये नहीं करना, इसको नहीं करना. We are telling them what not to do bulk of the time. Take risks and allow them to do what they want, and they will create. I'll tell you. That is one. And of course, now, we have the Atal Innovation incubators and centers that are coming up. I'm very happy that 5,000 centers in schools will get the benefit of 20 lakh each, etc. And there is a program on training, etc. That's very, very important, because then unless you play with your hands and तोड़-फोड़ अगर नहीं करते ना, तो जोड़ भी नहीं कर. एक बात, पहली बात. The second part is that's why I said we have to rethink about the way we do education. Today, what is our system, Amitabh? There is a single question and there is a single correct answer. अगर वो नहीं दिया तो 0 मिलता है आपको. ये गलत है. Okay? Because for a single problem, there are multiple solutions. And the students should be allowed to sort of do that. I'll give you an example. For example, in my innovation courses for undergraduate, I do something. I take a glass of water, which is half filled, keep it there, and I go around. Because innovation is all about, given a problem, finding a solution, right? So I say, I have to take water out of this glass. Kaise karego? The first fellow says, pour it. Second fellow is a bit destructive. He says, break the glass. It will come out. Third fellow says, boil it. Keep it under a burner. Fourth fellow said tissue paper, capillary action, it will come out. The next fellow remembers the crow story. You remember those stones, etc. And like that, they give answers. And after 8 or 10, they come to some standstill. Then I tell them that there are 43 ways of doing it. And I show them 43 ways. Okay? And by using different kinds of the sort of forces, keep it on a spinning table and rotate it fast, so centrifugal forces will go like that. And then there are different ways of doing it. हम लोग क्या करते हैं? एक क्वेश्चन पूछा तो उसका एक ही जवाब है, दूसरा जवाब नहीं. ये लर्निंग बाय जो रोट है एकदम गलत है. मैं ये नहीं कहता कि एवोगाड्रो नंबर को भी बहुत सारे, एक ही एवोगाड्रो नंबर है, एक ही न्यूटन्स का है, लेकिन प्रॉब्लम इन सर्च ऑफ सॉल्यूशन जो है उसको अलग अलग करें. But I'm very happy to tell you that the confidence in the young people, we are not trusting them. That is the problem. I am the president of Jnana Prabodhini, जो पुणे में है ना. It's a very innovative this thing. So we had these students gathering, and I remember I posed this in the morning, and I said I will give 5,000 rupees prize. These are 43 solutions. There are 43 solutions, and the one who gives the highest and the correct, will get that prize. Can you just imagine? And I gave my email ID, and number of them came. In fact, one girl, I forget her name now. She says, "Sir, you asked for 43, I will give you 44." That is the confidence we have. But we don't give them a chance to give 44. We say, "अरे एक मग करना, उसको यहाँ रखना और sort of." So ये जो fundamental changes है ना, curriculum में, pedagogy में, the way we do things, learning by doing. Example, I'm sorry, I'm elaborating it because the question is so important. I said I can speak 45 minutes. I remember I was fortunate. Principal Bhave, who was my science teacher, by the way, I remember I went to a very poor school because 21 rupees that my mother needed to get admission, it took 21 days. She had to borrow it from somebody who was a maid at Chowpatty. And by that time, all admissions to great schools were closed. But I went to a poor school. But that poor school had rich teachers. And what Principal Bhave believed in was learning by seeing, learning by observing. So, soap making, for example. In tram, he took us, no buses at that time. And my 7 paisa or 10 paisa ticket, he himself paid, although he was poor because I couldn't afford it. And we went to Sivri and saw the soap making factory by the way. All right. So there were different kinds of influences. And he would give simple experiments and shows, like, for example, he took a piece of paper. He had a lens in his hand, convex lens. He went into the sun, moved it up and down. There was a bright spot, the paper burnt. And for some reason, he turned to me and said, "Mashlekar, like this, if you focus, you can burn anything in the world, you can achieve anything in the world." That was a turning moment. I said, I must become a scientist. And later on, later on, it gave me other messages. Like, for example, this lens, the sun's rays are parallel. And what is the property of parallel lines? They never meet. Convex lens, what does it do? It makes them meet. So therefore, when the country is divided because of religion and caste and that, etc., they are all parallel. They don't want to meet. We require convex lens leadership, jo usko meet karegi. So when I became Director General of CSIR, 40 labs, I said, not 40 labs, one team, one CSIR, etc., etc. So it was a simple experiment, one lens, maybe 10 rupees, but it Mashlekar. So that importance of teachers, that is the importance of innovation, things differently. और उसके लिए पैसे की जरूरत नहीं, सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात है. Thank you.
Yeah, that was again very fabulous. There is another aspect of education which people have asked about, and this says, why does our education system not produce enlightened citizens? So what is your take on that?
No, but that is exactly what I said. No, that the emphasis, as I said, enlightenment, you have these blended values. No, in a sense, you must have seen, I had a repeated emphasis on Mulya, right? Mulya Samvardhan, okay? Vyaktimatva Samvardhan, Netrutva Samvardhan, etc. So what happens is that the focus is so much on Jnana Samvardhan that we miss out on all these other things. So, and therefore, I talked about those five, the emotional intelligence, etc. That is how that enlightenment comes. Enlightenment will also come by what you said a little earlier. I'm very happy you talked about science, spirituality, and that blend, etc. As a coincidence, by the way, and the title of the talk basically is Science, Spirituality, and Pandemics. What is the importance of science, spirituality, and pandemics, and how you can deal with it? In fact, I start by saying, reading out. I'd say I'll just read out. Basically, although on the 12th it will appear, and then I will put it on the web, by the way. But I'll read out my opening paragraph. I say, when the famous Time magazine told the person of the 20th century, it was Albert Einstein, perhaps one of the greatest scientists ever. And he had the following to say: everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of a man, and one in the face of which we, with our modest powers, must feel humble. But Einstein himself revered Mahatma Gandhi and had said about him, generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon this earth. And Mahatma Gandhi himself had said, if both science and spirituality go hand in hand, then one can create heaven on the earth. So Einstein and Gandhi believed that science and spirituality must go together. And then I go on to explain how in pandemics it matters, because it is affecting our body, mind, as well as soul. Now, body can be dealt with by science. You have vaccines, you have therapeutics, diagnosis, this, that, and the other, etc. But mind, what about mind? And what about the soul, basically, So I think these kinds of learnings have to be integrated. Actually, they cannot come as some sort of outside. And that is important. And I see that basic theme in our new education policy. I hope it gets implemented in the manner that it is supposed to.
There is another question, sir. It says, if the world accepts online learning as an alternate mode of teaching, don't you think that we will compromise with the academic culture which inculcates spiritual wisdom? So is there a, you think there is any conflict between, the way we teach spirituality traditionally compared to the way it would happen in this new digital era?
Yeah, I sort of partly I had explained that already. I'm very glad that I mentioned about that. You are absolutely right. Online learning is not the panacea for everything. I'm sorry. It has to be blended. There's no substitute. Amitabh, like I'm seeing you right now, I'm missing a handshake with you. I'm missing a hug with you. I can't give a digital hug to you, basically. So I think what is happening is that pandemic has made us a bit panicky, that we think that is what is going to happen. Online learning cannot be just substitute for education. Like I said, learning, doing, and being, that being part of it, there is no way it can be done by online learning. It has to be blended. The human being has to be there. The spirit has to be there, like I read out the spirit a little earlier.
Okay, another interesting question. If you have to suggest anything in current education system, what would come in this first top 3 priorities that you would assign as the changes required in the current education system?
I would say flexibility and freedom is the first one, because as I said, we are slaves to this, and I read out to you. We are slaves to regulations, norms, graduation requirements, exams, timetables, this, etc., etc. Who has created it? God has not created it. Even if God has created it, we can change it, basically. So I think, I gave just now an example. In Delaware University, I taught differently, and I examined the students differently. I gave them marks on that, and nobody objected. Flexibility and freedom is the first one, because you can't bring innovation in education. What is innovation? Innovation is doing things differently. At the end, you have to look at the outcome. We look at the output. What is the output? 94.3% marks. अरे उसे कुछ नहीं फर्क पड़ता. In fact, the word is changing, by the way. Word is changing to such an extent that people just don't bother about degrees now. Some top companies, they say we don't bother about degrees. We look at you as an individual, your ability to have those kind of qualities that I talked about, complexity, creativity, emotional intelligence, etc., basically. So I would opt for that kind of education. In single word, I would say an education which makes a better human being. That's it. That's it.
Okay, sir. Final question. What skills and capabilities teachers need to update for the digital platform?
Yes, I have already explained to you those five, from teacher-centered to student-driven, telling to listening, mass production to mass customization, being a presenter to facilitator. I explained to you. For example, when I said those industrial stoichiometry principles, after I went through that Khan Academy 20 minutes, I was crystal clear. Now, if I go into the classroom and tutor sir would tell me what I already understood, I'll get bored, I'll disappear from the class. I mean, a time will come when the teacher with his back, as usual, with a blackboard will be teaching, and by the time he turns back, all students would have disappeared. We don't want that. So teachers' role changed, actually. Because what is happening, the learning is online, so it is for anyone, anytime, anywhere. It is not in those fixed class. Oh, ghanta ho gayi, ting, 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 you come in. Ghanta ho gayi, ting, 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 you go. No. It's a kind of a continuous learning. Second thing is going to happen for teachers, which is, as I said, and I mean that the students will be smarter than the teachers. Myself went through that, by the way. You know what this Lenovo Science Prize class, which was mentioned by you, which is considered kind of a mini Nobel Prize for developing world scientists, by the way. It's the highest science prize. And this was in my work on supramolecular system, gels and so on and so forth. So I was giving a talk in a subject where I'm supposed to be an expert, basically, to 12th standard students, by the way, in simple way. These boys, because the abstract of my lecture was already distributed, they knew what I was talking about. I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating. Almost 30 to 40% of the questions they asked me, I couldn't answer. They had studied it so deeply. In fact, they told me about something that I did not know. So all teachers have to be on the alert now. All that I would say. I'm not going to frighten you, but please understand that's the new generation.
Yeah, you totally agree, sir. I totally agree with you. Students are really becoming smarter and smarter, and teachers have to really catch up with them now. On the closing note, I will just talk a little bit more about the university that I mentioned, that Dev Sanskriti University. It has a few innovative concepts like, all the students have to go on an internship before they actually get their degrees, which is like, going to actual field and working with people, understanding the social problems and how to apply their own education so that they can, understand the problems of society and work for them. In addition, we have several interesting classes on Gita, for example, which explain children how they can, adopt these spiritual principles in their daily lives and, do much better than what they have been doing. So, on behalf of All World Gayatri Pariyar, I would like to invite you to, our center at Shanti Kunj Haridwar, as well as the Dev Sanskriti University. Whenever you have time, it'll be a pleasure for us to host you, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'll be delighted to do that once this COVID pandemic is over. But I just wanted to add something. I think what happens is that we confine our students to our laboratories. They have to see laboratories of life. So there is this Academy of Scientific and Innovative Research, ACSR, which was created when I was the DG of CSR, Director General of CSR. And I remember that we actually incorporated in it. I don't remember whether it was 6 week or 8 week, that they have to go, stay in a village, look at the problems, and provide scientific and technological solutions. And we just did not do it as a kind of just an exercise they have to do. It had credits, by the way. Because anything, like anything free, is not valued. Similarly, anything which is just an experience doesn't get. But if you say these are credit and you're going to be marked, it makes a difference, you know. And we did it almost 10 years ago. It's extremely important. What you're doing is extremely important. And also blending it, like you said, Gita, that's what I'm saying here in my talk on the 12th, as a matter of fact. It has to be integrated. It is not something which is peripheral. It is core. It is at the center.
Okay, sir. So thank you very much for being with us for such a long time. We're so happy that you could spend so much of your valuable time with us, and it was really enlightening. So many things we could get to learn, and see how. I'll assure you that in all the mission that you have in your mind, DIA is an organization which will always be ready to support you. You can count on us whenever you need any help from in terms of volunteers, in terms of people who are willing to devote their time to good social activities like the way you are conducting. So it'll be a pleasure if you remember us and call us over whenever there is any task that you have in hand for us. And so coming to the end of this enlightening, I would say again, and I'd like to on behalf of all the participants, I would like to thank you for your time. And we normally close our sessions with a Shanti part, which is a prayer that let there be peace in the world everywhere. So I'll close this session with a Shanti part.
Yeah. Thank you.
Om Dyo Shantirantariksha Shantihi Prithavi Shantirapah Shantiroshadayah Shantihi Vanaspatayah Shantirvishve Devah Shantirbrahma Shantihi सर्वगं शांति शांतिरेव शांति सामा शांतिरेधि ओम शांति 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 सर्वारिष्ट सुशांतिर्भवतु. Thank you everyone. Thank you one and all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.